Hello and welcome to the Self-Love Show with Sammy. I am your host, a clinical hypnotherapist and coach specializing in helping women with anxious attachment styles, low self-worth, settling for bare minimum in relationships and in their careers, their business, to completely recalibrate their identity into their highest standard self. So from there, the way that they then move in their world is completely different, and what they attract is on a completely different level, a top tier standard in relationships and in their success. They have unwavering faith in their ability to achieve now that they unequivocally, with audacity, know their worth, and that is absolutely locked into every cell of their being. So in today's episode, what I want to talk to you about is really how I completely shifted my life, how my relationship evolved from me being a woman postpartum with severe anxiety, realizing I had anxious attachment. I hadn't known until that point in my life that is what I struggled with. I felt this constant loneliness and almost like I was lost in my life. I struggled to get my business going. I struggled to maintain healthy relationships, friendships, and all of this kind of manifested into a really difficult experience when our first daughter was born in 2020. That is the moment in my life, as you might have heard if you are subscribed to the podcast, that I then uncovered it's me, it's my identity, it's my programming that needed to shift so that I could experience a different reality. As I totally believe and know that we manifest 100% of our lives. As now being trained as a clinical hypnotherapist, we know the science behind the neural pathways, the neural connections that we hold are then used as filters. They're the memo, they're the rules that our mind then seeks out the evidence of. So we don't just deal with raising our biofield and increasing our energetic state to become an aligned match. We're talking about scientifically reprogramming those neural connections so that our filter mechanism is completely updated with our most successful self, with our most loved self, with the version of ourselves that we've always wanted to be. So the way in which I found worked really fast for me was I poured my energy and focus into creating my most successful self for my business. I was, like I've said, postpartum with our first daughter in 2020. It was a lockdown. I had a period of time before I had to go back to work. I had an amount of savings that would have kept me going until whether I went back to that job or whether I went back to another job. I needed to move my ass. I needed to get the business going so that I could replace a full-time income. I figured out how, using subconscious reprogramming and healing of my anxious attachment, to create this successful version of me, and then made what I call my glow up method so that I could wire her in on a daily basis. And in today's episode, we're talking about how glowing up your business, transforming your self-worth, supports you to never settle for bare minimum men ever again. So initially, when you have this understanding of your anxious attachment style, where it came from was the inconsistency of your needs being met as a child. So as a child, you have no ability to attach any meaning to that other than this is a fear of my safety here. They are rejecting me, they might abandon me, I need to do everything I possibly can so that they will still love me, so that I'm safe in this world. And as those neural connections wire and fire and they repeat this loop of patterns throughout your childhood, that then creates the similar patterns in relationships and in your business as an adult. Now, in your business, how this shows up is you feel like you're deeply inadequate. You don't feel like you're good enough. You compare yourself to other people in the industry. You're wildly afraid. Now, I know this from personal experience, wildly afraid of what you have to say or what you have to share, your beliefs, the true version of you. If people see that, they might judge it, and that, without you having even known if someone was to ever say anything about you, just the mere thought of it sends your whole body into fight or flight mode. And what our job is to do is to get it back into the parasympathetic state, which is what we call rest and digest. How do we do that? We support you in feeling like you are completely safe without external validation. So businesses, as we glow up our businesses, they are always described as being the best project for your self-development, because we're all fucking afraid. But to succeed, we have to put ourselves out there anyway. So we do a lot of what I call exposure therapy. And if you're in my academy, my membership, the Dreamer Girl Life, you'll know that we do this a lot in alignment with the subconscious reprogramming. So you need to act as if your most successful self. You have to act like you're the authority. You've got to act like you've already reached the level of success, the level of wealth, the level of impact that you desire to have. So then how you show up, how you speak, and the consistency of it proves that. Your energy speaks volumes. And to do this, you must raise your internal worth. So with this repeated practice, you come to understand the anxious attachment style isn't your personality. It's something that you just needed to unbecome and unwire. It was a survival response that you don't need anymore, but it is the biggest method of self-sabotaging in your business. It will make you procrastinate. It will keep you inconsistent. It will make you consistently look for likes, material evidence, money, sales, clients coming in to prove your worthiness, instead of you claiming your worthiness and then moving and taking the action knowing that it's enough. This is an emotional and a neural update. We're wiring and rewiring your subconscious mind and your nervous system together in your business to create your most successful self. And as a byproduct of pouring your energy into this, I'm going to tell you how it impacts your relationship for the better. As you learn that the world is abundant and there's limitless possibilities of what you are able to achieve, that your potential is second to none, when you start to see through not only consistently showing up and doing the things that you tell yourself you're going to do, you build phenomenal deep trust within yourself and your ability. But as you see that being reflected back to you through your business achieving milestones, you recalibrate internally your own self-worth in all areas of your life. You realize this one life you've got, and you get to have the kind of life, the kind of relationship, the kind of experiences that you want to have, because you now know you're worthy of it. You don't have to settle for a normal 9-to-5 life. You don't have to do what your parents did. You don't have to live a life like everybody else is living. You want to make a difference in the world. You want to live your life to your fullest potential. Now, as that recalibrates and updates your internal self-worth, increases the baseline of your standards for what you're now settled with. So firstly, more than anything, you're pouring so much energy into your business, your purpose, your passion, your career, the promotion now, that you have less time for those relationship anxieties. You've got less time for the mental ruminations and thinking over old stories and patterns of negative things about yourself, chasing after a man to commit, to give you attention, to take you out on a date, to say or do the things that you want so that you can get validation from him that you're enough. And you're pouring your energy into claiming who you are now, internally identifying as her and moving like her in the world. You're creating success, you're creating generational wealth, you're setting new standards, you're doing things different, you're creating your own rules, you're creating your own pathway, and you are the example, you're leading the way, you're becoming the authority of something that you're absolutely obsessed with. And as you do this, so firstly, not only do you then have less time, there's less mental rumination, but you start to value your time and your energy more. You're redirecting your energy from personal into professional. You're creating this outstanding, worthy, abundant, wealthy, powerful identity, and you code her in and you move like her in your business. You then shift the lens through which you see what you're deserving of in love, what you deserve in relationships. You're less willing to put up with nonsense. Your time means so much more to you now because you're so obsessed with this business, with growing this purpose, with growing this passion. So the person that gets to take up your time has to treat you to now the respect and the value that you see yourself to be. As you consistently show up in your business and you prove to yourself that you can do the stuff you tell yourself you're going to do, because the discipline behind running a business is second to none. And it's something that not everybody effortlessly has, because our minds are wired to go towards pleasure and away from pain. The easiest things to do in our day-to-day life is eat shit and watch Netflix, watch Love Island. By the way, I love it. I just record it. But we then sabotage ourselves by not sticking to the plans and the discipline that we've created, the consistency that we've mapped out to excel in our business or our careers. And you do the things that give you instant, easier, faster pleasure instead. So we have to create that with neural wiring and repetitive habits every single day. We have to create the flip to this work right now is more pleasurable than where I currently am. That's more painful, is staying where you are, than the pleasure of where you're going. You do this, you're building this outstanding level of self-confidence. So then that changes your energy, your thoughts of yourself, your worthiness, what you're willing to settle for, the kind of people you even want in your environment. You want people who are expansive, people who are visionaries, people who support you. They don't have to be doing what you're doing, but you want people who love what you do, support what you do, encourage what you do, who are proud of you, because you will become unequivocally proud of yourself and who you've become and what you've achieved. And aside from all of that, the subconscious rewiring that we do with the hypnosis recordings to change the way you speak to yourself will internally shift up your self-worth. It will make you feel extremely valuable. You'll start to know your worth. You'll start to realize you're no different than anyone else on this planet, and you get to have the massive vision that you desire. It is also completely possible for you, and this all is an internal game. And as this starts to soak in, the more that you repeat, everything is about repetition and persistence. We're creating these new connections and repeating them with the subconscious reprogramming and the daily exposure therapy by acting as your most successful self. Now, as you repeat this, you create this outstanding self-confidence, this value for yourself, for your time, for what you want to have in your life. This changes how you then respond in relationship experiences. You have less attention span for noise and nonsense. You get more irritated, less interested, and less attracted to people that don't have high standards in the way that they treat you, to people that don't treat you to the degree now that you're treating and seeing yourself. So I didn't solely focus on my relationship. What I focused on was my innate self-worth, the version of me that I'd always dreamed of being, the version of me, my most successful self, having reached my fullest potential. What goals did I want to achieve? What impact did I want to have in the world? And then I would create her identity, and I wired that in, and I moved like her with discipline. And now that my second daughter's 10 months old, this is what I'm recalibrating again, which is why we're having this over in the membership through August. We're talking majority now, we're focusing on blowing up our businesses, as this then transforms your self-worth, and as a byproduct like I experienced, it impacts what you're willing to settle for in your relationships. As I developed internally, as I grew self-confidence and trust for who I am and what I can achieve, and I opened up my mind to the possibilities and the potentials of this life, I stopped comparing myself and thinking I was beneath others. I then shifted what I had time and energy and focus for. And you don't have to verbalize these things. It comes across in your energy. It comes across in your attention, what you're bothered about, what you respond to, your emotional regulation, as you now feel safe without external validation, because you've already achieved so much, you've done so much, you've progressed so far personally. Your nervous system is regulated without needing that external validation, because we know in businesses, first of all, nothing's happening before anything blows up. It almost looks like it's an overnight success, but it's all of those weeks, days, months of consistent subconscious reprogramming and exposure therapy as your successful self that builds this big breakthrough. So as you do that, you learn to validate yourself. You learn to feel safe in your system. You regulate back into that parasympathetic response, and you become extremely unattracted to people who can't meet you where you're at. You stop people pleasing. You stop doing everything for others so that they're happy with you. You stop trying to prove your worth to other people, that you're good enough not to leave you and leave you for somebody else. You now innately believe and know who you are and what you can achieve. And you're only willing to have people in your life that love you, to support this vision and make you feel good. Ultimately, when you don't have this desperate neediness for someone else in your life, you attract, you transform into very self-fulfilling, healthy, loving relationships where it's mutually respectful. You mutually have your own lives, your own visions, your own goals. And because you're no longer insecure, you don't have this belief that you're beneath others and you need to prove yourself to keep him because there could possibly be someone out there better than you. That makes you extremely attractive. So what I want you to take away from this episode is thinking of your biggest vision in the world. And we're going back to that rule of the mind that we need to make where you're going more pleasurable than where you're at. I want you to think about yourself 80 years old, and you're looking back on your life and what you poured your energy, focus, and attention into. You were so deeply afraid of showing up as your most truest, authentic self, sharing, selling, talking about, never shutting the fuck up about your business, your passion, what you have to serve the world with. You never stop trying for that career, that promotion, that success, whatever your big goal is in whatever industry it is. But your anxious attachment style stopped you from doing it because you were so afraid of the rejection. And it was never a real thing. It was an internal emotional response to the fear of your survival as a child. And you never removed that from your system. So you never achieved what you always wanted to. How will you feel? What will be the consequences? What will you regret? And from there, you're going to create your big why. And that why will be the causation, the fire up your ass to create your most successful self, to code her in every day and move like her, even though you're afraid. Because with that, with those things combined together, you will teach your mind, you will create neural connections, and you will teach your body that it is safe to be who you are in this world. It is safe to receive as you, it's safe to be seen as you, and it's safe to validate yourself, even if other people are confused by what you're doing. And ultimately, more than anything, it is extremely safe for you to have high standards and never settle for bare minimum men ever again. So I hope you've loved this episode. The links to come and work with me are in the show notes. And if you want to like, subscribe, send this to your besties, and I will catch you in the next episode.